Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. Welcome to another episode. Former Detroit Lions Herman Moore and Scott Mitchell stopped by to talk all things Lions, expectations for the 2026 season, a few insights from the past. We also talk coaching, plus we hit on the schedule. That and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
This is James Williams, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today are two guys who do not need any introduction to Detroit Lions fans, but I'm going to introduce them anyway. First up is a guy you've seen on this show a few times already. Four-time Pro Bowler, three-time All-Pro, College Football Hall of Famer, former Detroit Lions wide receiver, and Pride of the Lions member, Herman Moore. Herman, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Matt. It's good to be here.
And joining Herman and I is a man he often refers to as QB1. We're talking former Detroit Lions starting quarterback Scott Mitchell, who to this day is third most with 300-yard passing games in Detroit Lions history. His 32 touchdowns in the 1995 season is tied for the fourth most in a single season for the Lions. And we've got some more stats we're going to throw out later in the show. But Scott, it's nice to meet you, and thank you for joining the show as well.
Well, thank you, Matt. And I'm QB1 because I can't count any higher than that. I can only go to one. So little inside information.
All right, I appreciate that little inside information. I want a little more inside information while we're at it, because as we get started, I want to make sure my listeners know, everyone listening to this knows a little bit more about a really cool collaboration the two of you have going on. It's called Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell and Herman Moore. I've checked out quite a few of your guys' episodes. You've got some great content coming out, stuff that's really authentic to you guys. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about how this came about and what they can expect if they tune in?
Well, I started the Down and Dirty quite a few years ago, and it was just a radio show I had been doing. And I wanted to give the audience and people an insight to what really goes on with an athlete and give them kind of the down and dirty. And, when we were playing, we were always muted. We were very careful about what we said to the media. And it's like, all bets are off now. And I just wanted to give people a very authentic opinion and my perspective and take on life, sports, and everything. And Herman came on my show quite a bit, and we've always had this tremendous connection. And as we got on the air, it just felt very natural. We talked in the past about doing something together, and it just finally decided, hey, this is awesome. We really like kind of where both of us are in our lives, and so we decided to collaborate together. I moved back to Michigan to do this, so really excited to be here. Really excited to do stuff with her. It's just real easy and it's fun, and we've got this great chemistry, and that's kind of how it all started.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, I've enjoyed it, and Scott reached out and wanted to give me an opportunity to be on his show. And the more and more we spoke, the more and more I realized that I enjoyed our conversation, and given the opportunity to expand on our relationship and our show has been tremendous. And now that he's back here, we're able to do some things in studio that was a little bit tougher across the airwaves, but now it's been full tilt.
Well, that's awesome. Exciting to hear about the changes and the fact that you guys are looking to grow even more. And Scott, welcome back to Michigan, and looking forward to hearing what you guys put together. You guys are on YouTube, I believe, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the whole gamut.
We're on pretty much everything. We try to get out there and get into public as much as we can and kind of ride the wave of things. And Chrissy does a great job of getting us published and getting our content out there. So yeah, we're pretty much everywhere you can find content we're going to be, and maybe even a couple other places, but we don't really talk about that on the air.
All right, well, let's get started here. You guys have your pulse on the NFL and the Lions. Even though the Lions had a winning record at 9-8 last year, they're coming off a down year from expectations based on the two previous seasons. So that said, you guys, what gives you optimism? Not just like blind hope, but optimism that the Lions can live up to once again high expectations this offseason. They're predicted to have double-digit wins and compete for the division title. What makes you think that that is plausible this year?
Well, every new year brings about opportunity, and I think anytime you have a team that has been able to stay together as much as the Lions have been able to do it, it gives you a sense of confidence because you have consistency, you have the ability to take that chemistry and that development of all the teammates being under one system. It used to be you bring in a lot of players in order to have the success that they've had. You've had to bring in a lot of different mentalities. You have to bring in different modalities, different coordinators, and all those things. But they've been blessed to be able to do it with one coach, head coach. They just recently lost, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and then recently John Morton having to make a change, and that's where we saw a little bit of inconsistency and a little bit of a fall off offensively last year. But for the most part, this is a team that stayed together with the exception of injuries. And if you remove the injuries, they come back as one of the favorites because of the consistency that we've seen over the last 3 years.
Yeah, if you talk about last year being a disappointment, I think it was pretty much a disaster compared to what people thought it should be. I think everyone thought the Lions were going to compete and go to the Super Bowl. I really think people felt that way about this team. It just felt like they'd been seasoned enough to do it. You go through, you learn how, you lose to learn how to win kind of thing, and it just felt like the Lions were there. But to Herman's point, the injuries, that was a huge blow to this team, and you got to think, well, they're not going to have that many injuries again this year. The injury bug just doesn't typically hit a team like that. I think another thing, and this will sound kind of weird, everyone's kind of eyeballing the Chicago, or maybe it's the Northwest Indiana Bears. I don't know who they are, where they are these days, but I think everyone's with them, expecting them to be the team, right? And so it kind of takes the pressure off the Lions in some regards. You kind of be the underdog, and Dan Campbell's kind of I guess one cheek and grit and all that stuff, and so he's he kind of got the team where they need to be, where there isn't the expectation with this team. And I think that the Lions did a good job in the draft as far as getting some depth especially on the defense. And so and then the last thing I think is really important, whenever you have a quarterback, and of course I'm a quarterback, so I have to say this, it's written into my contract. Anytime you have a quarterback who's been around, and Jared's had a ton of success, and he's just going to get better. You watch Matthew Stafford, not Stafford, Matthew Stafford. You see him play and win a Super Bowl after a long time, and these quarterbacks get so much better over time. And so I really think the Lions, Jared Goff has played at kind of a quiet, consistent level, and I think that's another thing people should celebrate and get excited about.
Yeah, Jared Goff has not gotten his flowers enough. I think lately some people are starting to give it a little bit. The stats he's put up the last 3 years have been incredible. And Scott, you're right. Caleb Williams and the Bears are getting a lot of the notoriety right now, but Caleb Williams is on the cover of Madden, and the Rams are getting the attention as well with the big trade that they made. Those are the front runners. But there's a lot to like about this Detroit Lions roster. There's a lot of spots. Is there anything specific that stands out to either of you guys that you're like, ooh, I really like this spot?
Wow, I would have to start with the fact that they've been able to put together the offense and keep it kind of together. I mean, that's you always got to have that signature side of the ball, and if you can get the balance, that's great. It's hard to have both an offense and a defensive balanced football team, but the Lions have really relied heavily on their offense because they get into scoring shootouts. They get into opportunities where they need to be efficient and score points. They've been very good at special teams. So I think being able to keep your skill position players together offensively without the injury bug that we've seen that have plagued other teams has been great. You got your starting quarterback, you got your receivers. Not only are they healthy, but they're maturing. And then you're going to get back Sam Laporta, and you start to see really the impact of their offense. Even though you lose a guy like David Montgomery, you bring in Isaiah Pacheco, and all of a sudden now you have the opportunity to have an offense that doesn't necessarily take a different turn when you go switching between your running backs. You just get the same kind of an offensive system. So that's going to be good. And then you plugged up, the offensive line. You go and you draft. You get a first-round draft pick. that you're going to have as a starter. You're moving Panay Sewell. So there's these things that are happening. But, after saying all of that, I still see that defensively is where the concern comes into play. You still got to worry about the secondary and being healthy there. You got to make sure you don't have any holes in the linebacking position, even though you have Jack Campbell. And then around the defensive line, will you have an interior line? You have edge. You may get some more additional support on the outside now with Moore. But what does that mean for your interior line?
Yeah, I think for me, I guess it's the most intriguing thing is Penei Sewell moving to the left side. It's such a critical position on the offensive line. He's a very versatile guy. He's been a very steady and very reliable source on the offensive line, and that's a big jump. Yeah, and so it'll be interesting to see how he handles that. You get used to being on one side of the ball so much, and there's going to be an adjustment. You're going to see different matchups. You're going to have to attack them from technique differently than you did in the past, and a lot more is going to be expected from you. So that's an intriguing thing to me. I certainly think he's up to the challenge. He's a tremendous athlete and tremendous offensive lineman. So that's a really good one for me. And Jack Campbell, it's almost like somebody on this defense really needs to kind of say it's unacceptable. We can't be the weak spot on this team. Someone has to take that Lions pride and really run with it. And it feels like he's kind of at that age, the maturity, the experience, the success, that he's a guy that could really take that team to another. You get your left tackle playing really well. You get your middle linebacker kind of getting the team juiced up. And I think those two positions to me are ones that, that could really be the over the top, take this team to another level.
That makes a lot of sense on both those accords. And Herman, you already hit on the next question, which is, where is the jury still out on this team? Because there's a lot of excitement, and there should be. And I like how Scott said we're maybe not the team everybody's looking at getting, the front runner thing, but there are still some high expectations. And so as you talked about the defense, there are some question marks there, that interior part, the secondary of the health factor of it as well. So there are a lot of aspects to look at and see what's going to take shape when they hit the field, because that's what training camp is going to be for, and we'll figure out some of those questions on the defense at that point. Well, another thing to talk about is...
Can I just make a comment about that real quick? I'm sorry.
Yeah, totally.
Herman talked about the concern on one of the things that I'm concerned about, and it's not necessarily on the field. It's really Dan Campbell. How's he going to respond to a down year a year ago? There's been turmoil, and coaches grow and develop, and as much as players do. And so, is he ready for the next challenge? Is he ready because there is a great expectation with this team. And I didn't live here in Michigan, but where I lived in the country, there was an expectation. There are people that are following the Lions and they expect more. There are a lot of people that really like Dan Campbell. I'm a Dan Campbell fan. But how does he handle this adversity? And we don't know, right? Because he's never been through it before. So that's one of those question marks I think I have in my brain as well.
I will say this. I agree with Scott on there will be pressure. How will he handle it? I think in my opinion, he's going to handle it like he did when he first came in. I think he's back into that similar situation. You're not considered right now the favorite. I would say necessarily the runaway favorite to win your division. And you're going to be vying for an opportunity to have a bounce back year, which he was coming back into a system where he was going to have an uptick in terms of what was there prior to him getting there. And now that he's back in that position, it's about proving it all over again, because now you had that run, and now people will say, hey, that window, we've heard them kind of get defensive when it comes about the window. Well, there is a such thing as a window. Those that don't want to believe it, okay, I'll tell you what, you'll just keep letting it pass you by, and someone else is going to step into that place. The window does open and close, and it's about how do you catch fire, and how do you ride the luck in some instances, and then how do you capitalize on your down days to still come away with wins that you probably shouldn't win, and how do you win games that you probably should have lost. And if you are able to manage that and then come back, that's where I see them at. They're back at proving ground, in my opinion. They have to come out and say, yeah, we have the tools, but now can you actually execute it on the field? So there's pressure, but I think it's not unfamiliar. But I think now it's a little bit heightened because we know the what the expectation is and what it could have been and should have been, and it didn't happen. And again, I tell people this all the time. And this last thing I'll say on this is, you had the best case scenario. You had a bye week in the playoffs. You got the first round bye. You had home field advantage all the way through. It was going to come through your city. You also had where you were on the road in the conference. Forget the division. You had the conference championship game, and you basically give up a dominated game that you had for 3 quarters, and then ultimately to lose it, and then the other team goes on to the Super Bowl. So yeah, they've had everything in between, the highs and the lows. So now it's back to saying, oh, where do we go from here? So the expectations are going to be, I think, exciting for the fan base because you don't know. You just have what the expectations are, but you have no idea because it has never really materialized in any of the other scenarios.
Man, you guys are making this easy for me because you're taking this conversation the direction I want to take it. And we're talking about the need to rebound after a down year. Like, you guys are reading my mind here. Something similar but slightly different happened with you guys in the 90s, right? You went 10-6 in 95. And then the following season, you guys had a dip, went to 5-11 in 96, but then you rebounded a bit in 97. You made the playoffs. It's a reminder that nothing is guaranteed next year, right? There's that need to capitalize on right now. And so is that something as a player during the season you're thinking about or you're aware of, or how do you approach each season?
Well, I know for me, and you approach every season the same. Like there's this expectation of winning every single year, and you talk about that '96 year. I actually had an injury, not a lot of people knew about, and it was a horrible injury, and it really affected my ability to throw the football. And so, yeah, you do always have respect and appreciation for every single game. You always have respect for every opponent you're going to play. You can't take any year, any game, any scenario, any situation lightly, or you'll get run over. So I think the mindset is always there, but sometimes there's just these factors that are out of your control, that whether it's injuries or other mitigating factors, that just that you just get bad bounces every once in a while. Ball's not round, and so bounce is funny sometimes, and you just get some breaks in games that you should win and could have won, and you don't. And it's I think the key to success is having a marathon mindset, where it's like, it's not just sprinting to this game, winning this game. And I think that mindset goes from season to season. It's not easy to win Super Bowls in the NFL. And if it were, well, the Lions would be there, but it's about having the confidence to stay with and keep continuity and keep consistency together and let a team really grow and percolate. And you're ultimately in the end going to find a way to success. Having these knee-jerk reactions from year to year don't produce that continuity that you really need to win over time in the NFL.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Herman, you kind of talked about that window, and there are windows. And is it the content? I mean, you also brought the continuity. The coaching continuity is something that definitely impacted your guys' team. The current team, the coaching continuity, the head coach and the general manager, that's something that keeps stability there. But is the quarterback situation being consistent? Is that another thing that helps keep this window open, Herman? Or what are the areas that you think are the keys to keeping their window open?
Quarterback consistency is paramount. It is key to the consistency of. Let's start with the offensive unit. One is because of the leadership. It's the most important position that typically a team will have because the plays start there, and the play calling, the setting of the situations, the reading, and then taking all the information and the line calls that are being made and what the receivers are saying, and then dialing up the right play and making the right read. So it is critical. But I'll say this, I had to go through a year. I think I played with Scott only 4 years. And of one of those years, he had a limited year due to injury. But the consistency of what we did as an offense, you could see we were kind of parallel to what you're seeing with this offensive unit. We were explosive. We were always in the top tier of the offensive units, and we were highly explosive. But when you lose that, or if something were to happen, that becomes a fragile point for this team. If something were to happen, unfortunately, with the quarterback, it could completely set this team on a whole different path, and it could set them on a different course, because now you're going to lean heavily on your running game. And I think the running game right now, it's not between the tackle type runners. They're looking more of the outside edges. They're looking to where teams, I think, will be able to limit, some of the effectiveness of what those guys will do. And then with the passing game, it's built on efficiency. It's built on precision, and it's built on the fact that they have guys that not only get open, but they have to make things happen very quickly, and then they're trying to get the ball in their hands so they can make plays. So there's components to an offensive unit that we see with the Lions that they have to have that precision. They have to have that coaching. They have to be right. You saw what happened when the offensive coordinator is not quite right, and you get the coach calling plays, and all of a sudden now the offense doesn't look the same, and then there seems to be a little disarray, even though on the front side people going, oh, nothing to see here. No, it is something to see here. We're seeing something that's drastically different than what we're seeing. And then you're watching a guy like Ben Johnson over in Chicago take a system that was gradually gaining momentum and ground and confidence. And that's the same trajectory we saw when he was here coaching with the Lions. So we know that there's a proof there in consistency in coaches, consistency in having the same player personnel. And then if you go over to the defensive side, yeah, injuries are the next bug. And like I said before, just like you saw on the defensive side, the same thing could happen on the offensive side. We saw that with some of the linemen. So, all those things, when we talk about what does it take to go from one year to the next year and keep that run of consistency going. You mentioned our runs in playoffs. I guarantee if you go back and look, there is something that's going to set us back or forth, whether it's coaches, whether it's personnel change, whether it's players being gone or injuries. So you have to take that window and make the most of it when you can, because, I think you're setting yourself up for failure when you think you still got all this time and it just doesn't work in your favor, because everyone else is getting better too. They're making moves. And, so we'll see if it pays off of what they've done. They haven't been as active, I think, as some people have wanted in free agency at times, or they're coming late to the party when it comes to getting players. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with this year. They got a little bit of a runway and they know what they're up against.
Well, I think another thing, you mentioned quarterback, and you mentioned free agency and making moves. I memean, that's as big a part of the window as anything. Usually the quarterback is the biggest expense on your team, and so it's like you got to pay Peter. You have to rob Peter to pay Paul, and so these quarterbacks get these big contracts, and then you got to give up someone, or you're playing someone with less experience or less ability, and every team kind of battles that. And to extend the window, I think from a business side of it, it's all about managing the cap, getting the best value you can for the buck that you get, and figuring that. Tom Brady famously said, look, I didn't take all the money when I was a quarterback, and I didn't because I wanted my team to, I want a good team around me. And so I think not only is it just playing on the field, but it's also how the team is put together from a cap perspective, and really keeping together as many of those pieces as you can to be competitive, because that's going to limit your window. You see a lot of these teams with these young quarterbacks that are playing well. When Brock Purdy was, out in San Francisco and he was on this, Mr. Irrelevant contract, and they really made a nice run there, and they had a nice window. They didn't win a Super Bowl. And so managing the dollars is a big a factor in that window being open and extended is probably anything else.
Yeah, those are some excellent points. And Herman brought up the coaching changes. Scott, as a quarterback, I mean, what's it like with a new offensive coordinator coming in? Jared Goff's going to. Sorry, did not mean to interrupt you, but you have a pretty good, quick answer. Elaborate on that one. Jared Goff's going to have his third OC in 3 years.
It's hard. Because you play and you understand football, like intellectually you get it, right? You'll go through all the OTAs and you go through training camp and you spend all this time, and you'll know the offense, but you won't know it intimately in a game setting. You won't know intuitively about the reads and really totally believing what you see out there, because it happens so fast. And And I'm a big believer, and I've always been a big believer in, building your offense around the abilities of your players and what they can actually do. And the problem too many quarterbacks get is they get cocky and confident, go, I can do this, I can do anything. And I think that's not a good thing to do. It's like really saying, understanding your limitations and playing to your strengths and playing to the strengths of the people around you are so good. It's so hard to really intimately know and understand an offense. When you keep getting a new one every single year, and not only is it you, but it's the people around you, and that chemistry changes over time as well. It's not all the offensive pieces aren't necessarily in place. Now there's a lot of them with the Lions that are, and that's a good thing, but it's really hard to get that total confidence and effectiveness when you're constantly changing. You look at, like, I was in an offense with the Miami Dolphins, and Dan Marino had that system his whole entire career, and it was a beautiful system, very hard to learn, but it was the same one. And Brett Favre kind of had, and you see some of these players, I'm going back a little bit here, but it's having that consistent offensive coordinator and system in place that really gives you that long-term success, which goes back to my whole point about having it be a marathon. These changes every year just disrupt that and make it very difficult. It's not impossible to do, but it sucks. It really does. I'm not going to lie. It's not the best thing to deal with when you play.
Yeah, well, some of those changes that you guys faced were drastic changes. I think the Lions are not expecting drastic overhauls on the offense with Drew Petzing coming in, but there are going to be adjustments. There will be a learning curve for the scheme as well. But Scott, you guys said that you approach every season the same. But let me ask you this: coming back from having a down year where things didn't go the way you wanted, how does that affect training camp? Do you go into training camp the following year with a different mentality, or is it kind of the same, just time to get back to work? Does that impact you differently?
No, it does. I mean, because you're extremely competitive, and what's great is that you get to come back next year and answer back for the year before, and you get to go out, and so you have an opportunity to redeem yourself and to play better, and that's kind of a week to week thing as well. And that, no, I don't know a player who likes to lose and have a losing, ever have a losing season. So yeah, there's clearly, I say that, it's the same, but there is this added, and I don't know if it's a respect thing as well, just having a greater respect. And so you work maybe a little bit different, you focus maybe a little different, you maybe are a little bit more self-reflective and say, hey, we need to improve here, we need to be better at this. I'm sure all of that goes into it, but the biggest thing for me is just, getting a chance to play another game. I mean, that's just how athletes are. Just give me one more play, give me one more quarter, give me one more season, kind of thing. And so it's hard when it's completely over and you don't get another season, but certainly when you get those opportunities, you really want to take full advantage of them.
How about for you, Herman?
Coming back from a down year, I think gives you an opportunity to reflect on proving things to yourself. Also coming back and proving to your team that you're coming in ready. I think it heightens your preparation from the standpoint of what is your accountability going to be this year for the team to get back on track. And you start to really find out if you have a resilient team, if you have a committed team or teammates. You look at the coaches, you see if everyone's willing to say, okay, are we going to change and fix some things? Because obviously whatever we did last year didn't work, whether it be a faster team, a stronger team, a healthier team, whether it's more efficiency, maybe it's not making certain dumb plays or mistakes, and all those things. So you have to treat it like, how do we get better? Because obviously last year wasn't good enough. And I think that's for every team that doesn't win the Super Bowl. If you're not a Super Bowl champion, even then you're going to look at it and say, how do we get back here? This was a great year. There was a great run. And it's almost an impossible feat. You think about how hard it is to go back to back, just winning your division. What about being a conference champion? Then what about being a Super Bowl champion? That's why I can't understand. It's a short season, 17 games. Even when we played and it was 16, that is not a long season. And before you know it, to try and right the ship, it gets really, really difficult to do later on. So I think the earlier you can get back to it, the quicker you can get in to start to see and assess where you are, and work on things that you see that are either still problematic or things that give you the advantage, are key. And that comes down to your coaches. That comes down to your leadership. And I think the Lions do have the leadership that they're bringing back, both in the coaching side of it, the office side of it, and the executive team, but then also your leadership within your young players and your talented players. I think they have a good core of guys that the team is willing to rally behind. And that's important too. You know, Scott and I, we had a conversation earlier today. And one of the things I think that we were lacking, um, uh, that he had mentioned was, you know, really as much as we called ourselves teammates, I don't know if the bond was as thick and as tight as it could have been or should have been, because it's just a different time. It was a different place where you can get lost a little bit more. Here, guys have the ability to have relationships on the off season. They have an opportunity to communicate a little bit more effectively and efficiently than what we did during our playing days. So the opportunity for them to come in prepared and on the same page, there should be no excuses for anyone not being on the same page coming into training camp or coming into the regular season.
Well, let's talk about coaching a little bit more. That's an interesting, not an interesting, that's a great perspective. I want to go back to your guys' time though. Let's talk about Wayne Fonts. Everyone said he was a player's coach. So why did Wayne get that label, and was that accurate?
You know, I looked at Scott first.
No,
I'm
Yes.
interested to get his take on that.
No. So I'm not sure what a player's coach is, because, and I'll tell you why. And I think he was from the perspective of, he wasn't like micromanaging you. He wasn't like in your business every day. He let you be a player. He let his coaches coach. And if you weren't performing, he was not a player's coach. Like, he was going to let you go. He was going to fire you. He's going to bench you. And it didn't matter. Well, the only one that mattered was Barry. Like, he would never bench Barry. But he kind of, and you as a young player, or, you know, maybe interpret it the wrong way. Like, oh man, the coach is kind of laid back. He sits in a golf cart smoking a cigar all the time. You know, doesn't have these real long, fiery speeches before games, or doesn't have a lot of long team meetings and really kind of give you that raw stuff. And it could have been interpreted the wrong way. You had to do your business, take care of business, or he wasn't there. Now, when I got here, you know, and Wayne's a defensive guy by nature. He says, look, he goes, he can catch it. Herman Moore can catch it. So throw him the ball. Barry can run it. So let him run the ball. He goes, let's not make it more complicated than that. And, you know, and so he's pretty funny that way. But I will tell you, to his credit, and I don't know that I was Wayne's favorite guy in the world. Didn't have a great relationship. We didn't have a bad relationship, but I'll tell you what he did. We were not performing well as an offense. We were kind of struggling. He brought all of us in together. We started the season 0-3, and he said, "What's going on here?" And we said, "We're not letting our best players play and really put our best guys on the field and let them do their thing." And to his credit, he did that. A lot of coaches wouldn't. A lot of coaches would say it's my way or the highway. And he allowed us to change. And that turned into a record-setting year. And it was a head coach having a willingness to do that. And it was his willingness to bring his players in and listen to them. And again, I had my differences with Wayne, but I respected, and I knew where I stood with him as far as the kind of coach he was and his expectation.
I think the biggest thing I would say about Coach Fonts was the accountability factor that I think people just kind of grazed over, and they didn't realize that this was a coach that gave you the rope and said, okay, you don't have the ability to say, well, I wasn't given certain opportunities. So once he let go of that rein and said, listen, let's not make this more complicated than it needs to be. He doesn't want complexities. He wants schemes. He wants intentionality. He wants purpose, and he wants us to have production. And coaches that come out with these real clear, definitive, here's what it is. It's not ambiguous. It's not all these different things. You got to kind of figure out what he's trying to say and decipher some code. No, we need to go out. We need to win. We need to be aggressive. We need to go out. We need to tackle. Herman, you need to catch the ball. Scott, you need to make the throws. Barry, you need to break some tackles and runs. We're going to let this one guy go. That's your guy, Barry. You got to beat him because we're going to be one short because the quarterback's handing the ball off. So we're always going to be one person short. So you got to, so everyone knew what they were supposed to do. And then he left the other part to the guys in the locker room who were your leaders, right? The leaders had to go out there and have accountability for the units. So he's not going to go in and talk to that guy. No, the unit guy. Are you willing to take accountability as the guy that's leading your unit? Are you willing to take accountability for the guy that's leading the entire offensive unit as a quarterback? Are you willing to take, as a captain of the team? You're the guys who are the captains of our team. And we had that hierarchy and we had that respect that was there. But again, I think that overall team cohesiveness is not as great as you can have today because it affords them the ability to spend time in the off season, to travel together, to train together, to spend a month away from their home and go to a place where they could be remote and do those things. Well, that would have ate up probably 80% of our salary trying to do that, right? You'd have to go take out a loan. That probably have to go do that in our time, unless you were Barry, right? Some of these other guys or quarterback.
I saw your gesture.
Right. So I don't give any of these guys a pass. And I don't, when you don't have consistency, you're not on the same page, you're not understanding instructions, you don't have definitive leaders that I don't care if they're anointed, I don't care if they're assigned or whatever it is, everyone's got a role to play. And the one factor I will say again, and I'll end on this with a guy like Wayne, and any coach that does it, you have to have, when I say accountability, I mean high level accountability, but you too as a coach have to make sure you're not the liability because you're not giving the team the opportunity to go out and perform their task.
Very well said. And after Wayne left, Bobby Ross was brought in. A very different style, very different philosophy.
Why are we doing this?
A lot of things change. And no, we're I'm not going to name every coach that came after him, but we're going to jump all the way to Dan Campbell, you guys.
Well,
Okay.
I can actually give you a history of all the coaches because I think it's significant to
all of them.
Well,
you don't probably skip over a few, right?
Yeah, there's Caldwell and Schwartz and I can go through. But here's the point, right? And I mentioned marathon, right?
Yep.
And I believe that with a coach as well. And you look at the organizations that are very careful about who they pick as their coach, and they're also very patient with how much time they give that coach. And I really feel this has been a real struggle for the Lions. Everyone said, because we talk about Wayne, he's a player's coach, and he's like, no, these players need more discipline. So they bring in Bobby Ross, totally different style, right? Military guy. And you talk about micromanage, like he micromanaged every time you went to the bathroom. Like this guy was in your business, everything. And so, but the personnel did not fit the coach. And he had a style, he had a system, and we did not fit his system. So it's big offensive linemen. It's, we're going to run the ball first and all this stuff. And we were like agile. We were spread out. We were a very different offense. And so we did not fit his personnel or his style. And so then they go, well, they bring in Matt Millen and they go, we want to go to a West Coast offense and we want to bring in, Marty Morningwig or Steve Mariucci or one of those guys. And so now they don't want these big beefy guys. They want to, so it would have been better had they brought in a guy like that with the style of offense we played. And so now they're trying to catch up to a new system and they're just catching up. They're reacting to everything. And they're going through this for decades. And it's this futile chasing of something that they're never going to find, as opposed to saying, hire well, understand and have a philosophy and a game plan and stick with it and believe in it and go out and draft to it, free agent to it, and have some patience with things. And I just don't think that's been the case until they got to Dan Campbell.
Yeah, that's the thing that makes me get I just, when you even just going through that, it makes me feel some type of way, but you get a little upset because we harped on that so much about the importance of communication between players and coaches. And there's always been this division. And during our time, it was always upstairs and downstairs. It's on the field, off the field, personnel and people, but you're all one. And when you start to get into treading into the other territory, it's almost like you're encroaching, not realizing that you're one organization, you're one team, you're one mission, you're one goal. And after Wayne, it just started to become more about a coach's system, their individual needs, their needs of personnel and players, and what they think epitomizes exactly who and what their legacy is going to be, but not understanding how do you take what you have existing and either develop it or you build your system around getting the most out of those individuals from a talent standpoint. The coaches nowadays can get that. They understand it. They're a little bit younger. They're a little bit more flexible. They're a little less traditional in their thinking. And because of that, that's why every year any of these coaches are apt to win, because they have the locker room. They have the players. All you have to do is stay healthy. You have to execute. And I don't think there's any teams out here that really, truly, there's some, but there's a cluster that any of them can win at any time. And then there's the other ones that, hey, if they get a player here or there, all of a sudden now they're in the conversation. So it's not from the top to the bottom. You could be on the top one year and you could fall all the way back to the back end the next year, even with the same team in place, because other teams have made those small changes, not those drastic changes of personnel and basically imploding up a team like we saw happen so often with the Lions near the mid 90s all the way up through before even just Jim Caldwell, who I thought was doing a great job. He's gone. And Coach Schwartz, I think he's on the right path, how he's drafting defensively. And all of a sudden you start to pull that apart because you're chasing names.
Yeah, so some great insights. And I got to say, Scott, I remember when some of those offensive linemen, at least one from Wisconsin, was drafted, and it was changing the complete scheme and trying to match the personnel to follow it. And like you guys said, it was chasing, chasing, chasing. Well, the nice thing is there is continuity today. Let me ask you guys about Dan Campbell. Is there something you think that would have fit your personality, your playing style, or skill set that would have endeared you to playing for him and being part of his team?
What I like about Dan, and he played for the Lions, so he understands the culture here. And I think he was just really great at embracing the culture of Detroit, which is very blue collar. It's kind of us against the world, and we're Lions fans no matter what. And so I think he really understood that and really embraced that. A lot of people thought he was crazy when he gave his introductory. Everyone's just like, this guy's going to last 5 minutes, but he really owned it, and he's really owned the community here. And to me, when I played for the Lions, like, that's what I did. I lived here all the time. I showed up every morning at that facility at 6:30 in the off season and during the regular season. And I had a blue collar mentality, not very much talked about or celebrated, but I was a part of this community when I played, and that was important to me, and embracing the community. And so I think that's something that he would have appreciated. And what I would have appreciated from him is he's done a masterful job of building and rebuilding and instilling confidence in Jared Goff. I mean, Jared Goff was, probably shell shocked from his, being going to the Super Bowl and then being outcast and then being traded and kind of, hey, you're the player that just got, thrown in this trade. We want, everyone, they wanted Matthew Stafford, and it's just like, who's Jared Goff? And Dan Campbell did a brilliant job of, and I don't know if it's been talked about enough of just really, I don't want to say treated with kid gloves, but treated the right way to instill that confidence in Jared Goff, which I think has paid off in spades to the team. I mean, he's, Jared's played some great football here, and I think a lot of it is because of Dan Campbell.
I always say this about Coach Campbell. He would enjoy having me as a player, because I like playing like a dog. I know we're Lions, but I like to get out there and go after my opponent. I want to be aggressive. I want to play with a certain type of, I won't call it a chip, but just confidence. And in there, I think he likes to fight. He likes the determination. He wants players who want it. And I know that's the type of player I am. And that can rub a coach the wrong way if you don't have the confidence as a coach to embrace players that it's not about being greedy. It's not about saying, hey, I want the ball and it needs to go to everyone else. No, I want the ball because I want the ball. I want the ball because I can do something with it. I want the ball because I think I can be a difference maker and make things happen. Yes, I understand it's got to be spread around to other players, but I'll tell you what, I think if you make it a challenge, and he challenges his players, he challenges them to go out and dominate. He challenges them to go out and to be, the bigger man, the bigger player, the better team. What coach doesn't want that? And when you have someone who says, all right, I'm removing me, guys, like I'm going to get you ready and prepared. I'm going to get you what you need. That's what Coach Campbell comes in with. He goes, but once we're done and they blow the whistle and you step out on the field, I can't go out there with you. The other coaches think, no, I'm going to basically come out there with you. I'm going to come out there and you got to run it the way that I envisioned it in my mind. And if you see something you want, when you get that controlling, it falls apart. And if you look at from the GMs that we've had, depending on who they are, we don't have to go down the list, and then to the coaches, to offensive coordinators, to head coaches, when they came in with that mentality, hey, look at who I am, not what team I'm trying to build and what type of players I have, and we're trying to assemble collectively, but who I am, it fails because it's all about their reputation. It's all about them. And an organization, you got to recognize that because you got to understand the accountability falls on you too, because you're the one who brought them in. The players didn't bring those guys in. The players didn't hire those people. So when you have epic failure, you can't always say it's just the coaches you brought in or the people. No, these are the people you went out and vetted. You're going to hold the other people accountable when players don't work out. You hold your scouting department. You hold your position coaches. You hold who's responsible when you bring in bad people to run your team. And that's what they went through for a period of time, bad hires. And when you do that, you get bad product, even if you have good players. And right now, it's kind of come back full circle. I think they brought the right people in without the chips on their shoulders, without the egos and the attitudes. They're coming in with the fire to say, I have something to prove with my team. And that's what we get when you see Coach Campbell.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting that, Herman. And you guys both talked about it's building that trust across levels and trusting the players will get the job done and learn from you when they're on the field. And so that's where you're seeing the team work together, the organization work together that, as you guys pointed out, didn't always work hand in hand at different eras. But I want to stay back with the 90s team for just another minute here, you guys, because many Lions fans today still remember the squads of the 90s, especially that 1995 team. And I need to preface this with the fact that rules in the NFL were different in the 90s. The defenses could do things they can't do today. So keep that in mind when we say Scott Mitchell threw for 4,300 yards and had 32 touchdowns. Herman Moore had 123 catches to lead the NFL with over 1,600 yards. Teammate Brett Perryman, 108 receptions, nearly 1,500 yards. Herman and Brett were the first two teammates to ever each have 100 receptions in a season at the same time. Now, in 2000, Rod Smith and Ed McCaffrey did that, and in subsequent years, others have as well. But if you add the receptions together, they were not as impressive as Herman's and Brett's. And by the way, there was another guy named Johnny Morton in his second year who had 44 catches. Your offense still had a 1,500-yard rusher in Barry Sanders with another 48 receptions. So I've got some questions for you guys. First off, Herman, how did you get that many receptions from Scott when he had all those options out there?
Well, one thing we started doing is realizing that you can actually do more if you use more of your players. It gives you longer drives. You have more plays. When you go three out, you're in three, you're out three, and you're just trying to be more of a traditional style game. And granted, yeah, if you're waiting for the big explosive run, that's fine. But when you can pick apart defenses and you can control the down and distance, and you can dictate the pace of the game, and you can keep the defense on its heels. Like not like you hear people say, "Oh, we got to keep defense." No, we could keep them on their heels. The only thing that we really felt, and this is true, in '95 and even in other years, that we could be stopped is through play calling. And it's all in the sequencing of the plays. We felt that we could be just as effective, if not more so, passing the football than even running the football. And a lot of people, they will challenge that. But you have to go back and look at the lineups that we had, the scenarios that we had, and the fact that we imposed our will on secondaries. And it was only when we started to just dial it down a little bit and play into their hands, really where we felt we could be, stopped. But otherwise, I just didn't feel. I felt like that was one of our easiest seasons because of the way the offense was run, and it didn't seem labored. And you talk about the way the defenses were back then; they were challenging because inside the 5 yards, it didn't matter if you held, if you grabbed, if you were underneath and a guy blindsided you because you had your head looking back at the quarterback because it was a man route. So the rules changed to protect players. So you had to earn the yards after the catch. Was a dangerous thing to run after you caught the ball because guys would hit you high, they hit you low, they hit you all over the place. And now, guys look for soft spots in the zone. They look for ways to get down. There are gaps for them to be able to run after the catch a little bit easier. So, you talk about the yards, you talk about the receptions, that comes down to the fact that from an offensive standpoint, that tells you how much we controlled the game with our play efficiency, and the fact that we kind of imposed our will offensively on defenses because we had a lot of touches.
Yeah, you guys did. And Scott, how did you? No quarterback had done that before. 2 receivers, 100 receptions each. What was it like playing in that offense? How did you make that happen?
Well, to answer Herman's question, why he got so many passes caught, is because he caught the ball. Like, here's the thing: people don't. Herman's almost as tall as I am. He has a physical advantage over literally every defensive back in the NFL. And if you understand how to throw the football to him, he was always open. I mean, I literally could throw the ball to Herman on every down. So, did I have confidence in him? Did we have a rapport? 1,000%. And I was willing and confident to throw the ball to Herman Moore anytime I could, and I would be foolish not to. Okay, he was a phenomenal talent. But what our offense did was, it was brilliant, and it was simple. And it was simple because whenever we had one-on-one coverage, that's where we went. So if they brought an extra guy up to the line of scrimmage and the run wasn't there, then we threw the ball. And we threw the ball basically to the best matchup we could possibly get. If they weren't, then we handed the ball off to Barry Sanders with a spread out offense. Who likes those odds? Like, that's just like, are you kidding me? And so it was really quite simple. And it was simple even from the perspective of, if they're short, throw it deep. If they're deep, throw it short. And we really implemented this. And I'm not making it, I'm not oversimplifying this. I'll tell you, every single guy on that offense will tell you. So everyone knew that they were a viable option. It was really the defense that was going to dictate the terms, not the quarterback, or, it's how the defense played us was where the ball went. And there wasn't a guy there that was a bad option. I mean, Dave Sloan ended up being a Pro Bowl tight end, and he was the 5th option on the, it's not a bad option right there. So it was really, it was a perfect storm. It was a genie in the bottle type of thing, and we had coaches that were willing to do it and implement that offense. And we didn't start the season with that offense. We actually implemented it over a bye week after starting the season 0-3. So maybe there was a little bit of desperation there, but it was brilliance in how it was executed. And it was really everyone involved. And it was everyone having a willingness to be not selfish. And yeah, I love to throw the ball to Herman, but man, I'd throw the ball to Brett Herman in 2 seconds, and Johnny, and any one of them, and happy to hand the ball off to Barry Sanders. And because, there's no one could make magic like Barry. So it wasn't really overly complicated. And it's unfortunate that it didn't have a longer run than it did, because it really should have. We should have been together for, 5 or 6 more years at least. And it would have been one of the best offenses ever talked about in the NFL.
Yeah, well, I want to add one more thing to that. You know, a lot of people don't know this, but we were very interchangeable as wide receivers. Nowadays, you get guys. I won't say they're static and they're stuck on one spot, but they get kind of typecast in terms of who they are. You know, if I wanted to go into the X position to get singled up and become that one-on-one on the side, I could take an X route and then run the curl route or run a comeback route or in route or whatever. You know, if I wasn't as good, sometimes I didn't feel I was as great as running the corner route as, say, Johnny Morton or running the seam route. So I would switch with him and he'd run those routes and I would take his route, which may be a clear out or an underneath. And it was the unselfishness that we had as players. And it was all about how do we win? And if we could keep drives going and sustaining drives, we all would then have our opportunity. And yeah, it took a little bit before because it was we bickered. All receivers are going to bicker when if you don't have your receivers complaining, and I'm just going to be honest, and I'm going to throw it out here like, if you don't have your receivers sitting there going, throw me the ball, then if I just want to be the clear out guy, he's not going to be dependable when you need him because sometimes you're going to need that player. Every one of our guys would be in the huddle saying they were open or they needed the ball. I don't care. But when the play rolled, Scott knew we were all dialed in.
Sometimes though, some of them wouldn't get in the huddle because they felt like they weren't.
It wasn't me. I wasn't one of those guys. I was in the huddle.
That really happened, by the way, where I'm not going to say who it was, but I'm like, man, get in the huddle. He goes, why? You're not going to throw me the ball. So I said, well, go over there and line up. Just don't jump off sides then if that's the way it's going to be.
And that's what it would be.
But it was massively competitive, and that's awesome. Like we all wanted to win. Look, we were as confident as a team could be offensively in 1995. Like we were disappointed if we didn't go down the field in a drive and score something. Like if we had to punt, that was unacceptable. That was a disappointment, kind of a failure thing. Which is hard, because we went into the playoffs in 1995. We felt like we were going to the Super Bowl. I mean, I know every guy on that team felt that way. And we played very poorly in Philadelphia, but it wasn't from a lack of belief and confidence that we were going to. I know we all thought we were going to walk in that game and win it, and off we go.
Well, you guys hit on a lot of very interesting points there, and I appreciate those insights, especially the receiver routes. And again, it's easy for fans to forget as time goes by, but your offense was it was first in yards that season, it was second in points scored. But looking at it historically, before Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes got to Detroit, only one other Detroit Lions squad put up more points in a season than that 95 team. And that was a team in 2011. And so that team, that offense was pretty historic for the Lions. And so that was great to get some.
Really quick, we didn't do it for 16 games. We only did it for 13. Like that, like that's how good it was. Like if we'd have had that offense going into that season and had those first 3 games of the year, it would have been like beyond how epic it actually was.
Yeah, it's a great point. 'Cause you told me it wasn't until after week 3 that you guys made those adjustments. So, yeah. Well, guys, I want to let you know we have a sponsor for our show called Cherry Republic. They're based out of Northern Michigan. They have a Glen Arbor location, a Traverse City one as well. They are a cherry-themed retailer, but they've got 9 locations around the state, including one in Ann Arbor, so not too far from you guys. Great assortment of goodies. My favorites are the chocolate-covered cherries, and I'm a big fan of the cherry nut mix. But they've got a good variety of stuff, and we're talking salsas, barbecue sauce, cookies, sauces like a cherry horseradish, even a great northern steak sauce. So out of curiosity, do any of these sound something like they might be up your alley? Because I will definitely get in touch with Chrissy after the show and get something sent out to you guys.
I'm gonna go ahead and jump right on in because I absolutely love their products, and the chocolate covered cherries are great. The salsa is magnificent, and it's some of the best stuff that I've had. Their packaging is awesome, and I'm gonna go ahead and vouch and say yes. Please reach out to Chrissy for and whatever Scott doesn't want, I will take, and then if he doesn't want it, I'll take double. Because they're fantastic company, man. I really appreciate the offer. But yes, please reach out to her.
Yeah, absolutely.
You won't be disappointed.
Oh,
I'm just
you
telling
can
you,
tell already. No,
it is awesome.
yeah, I was salivating as
Oh, yeah.
I was hearing the
Oh,
descriptions.
yeah. We'll eat some on our set.
Yeah, I like the steak sauce.
All right, I'll make sure we get some steak sauce included. Well, guys, the NFL schedule came out not too long ago. I know you both taken a look at it. Is there one or two takeaways that just stick out or jump out to you about the Lions 2026 schedule? Anything that you like or dislike about it?
Well, the end of the season is pretty brutal. A lot of, I think, what 3 of 4 are on the road. They're all division games. When things are really going to matter, that's a tough spot. And then around the Thanksgiving game, where the team goes to Germany, and all of that travel and playing 3 games in 12 days with an extended travel. Those are tough hurdles, and it's a real thing. There's a fatigue factor that's just kind of invisible, but it shows up a little bit in the play of the team. So win early so that you can kind of survive late is really, in my opinion, with the theme of the year.
When I look at their schedule, I, I I don't try and do like most people. They start counting wins and losses.
Yeah.
I look at it. I don't get caught into the strength of schedule. And then we've had this conversation, this debate on our show several times, because teams that you think the strength of the schedule is based on teams where they left off last year. It doesn't take into account draft picks. It doesn't take into account guys getting healthy on teams, correcting mistakes or things that they had that were problematic. Some of the teams that you would have seen that were losing by 7 points or less, 5 of their games and things of that nature. Like, there's so much that can happen to where all I know is this: they need to line up whatever team's on their schedule. They need to be prepared and ready to play and give their best and let the results be the result. If you start getting into counting wins and losses, counting what's going to happen, as Scott said, like there's just some natural facts that come into the game. You have to win as many games as possible. And you're going to have some games that are going to be down games, and you just got to figure out a way to get through those. But when you peel it all back, the goal is, as we've seen, it's not just to win your division. It's not just to make it into the playoffs. Those are prerequisites in order to get to the path of success, which is the Super Bowl. You have to be consistent through the year. You have to win those games. You have to get into those dances. You have to perform. You have to execute and win. And then ultimately, if you're blessed and if you're good enough, you get into the Super Bowl game to where you have an opportunity to be crowned champion. That's it. As we said earlier, the game is as simple as you want to make it, and it can become as complex and as confusing as you want to make it, if you will. And that's the takeaway I take from the schedule. Whoever's on there, it doesn't matter. You got 17 games, and you got 17 opportunities to run through and put yourself in a better position to get into postseason or win your division and then get to that game. That's it. That's it. Anything more than that, it's hypothetical.
All right, got to take care of business first and then just kind of see where it takes you.
Absolutely. And,
all right, well,
eat a lot of those chocolate covered cherries and salsa and steak sauce. That's
for
it.
sure. Yes, cherryrepublic.com, folks. That's where you will catch that stuff. Well, the Lions are going international again. We kind of mentioned that one. This is the first time since 2015. They're playing in Munich this year. The NFL popularity just continues to grow. And Scott, I know back in 92, you played in a preseason game in Berlin, I believe, as a member of the Dolphins against the Broncos. What was that experience like playing overseas, even though it was a preseason game?
Yeah, I played in Japan too the year before that, and also played in the World League and played in Frankfurt. So played overseas 3 different times in my career. I loved it. I thought it was great. Of course, playing in Berlin, it was very historic. It was Olympic Stadium, the Jesse Owens and Hitler deal. And we actually practiced on the parade grounds against the Denver Broncos. It was quite the experience. Of course, I was fighting to be the backup quarterback at the time. So for me, the preseason was like playing in the Super Bowl back then. And I think I was the player of the game. Not that I'm mentioning that at all, but
in preseason,
it's the American Bowl in Berlin. They have an MVP of the game, and I won the MVP. But
this guy,
no, I know, believe it, it's true. Yeah. Capable of winning MVPs. What do you know?
Well, I'm going to ask you when we get off of this. I got to ask you about this World League thing. You know,
Well,
I don't know where that escaped me.
yeah. So in 1992, playing for the Dolphins, I begged to actually go play in the World League because I never played. Oh, I sat behind Dan Marino. It was greatest, one of the funnest times I've ever had playing football in my life. Came back a different player, and it was wonderful. But a lot of fans support when it's especially in Germany. I mean, the fans will be out in Munich for the Lions. There's a great passion for NFL football, and it'll be a tremendous experience. And I loved it. I love that the NFL is expanding this. I'd love to see, a division, a European division of the NFL, and kind of incorporate a more real world wide game. And certainly there's an interest in it, but it was fantastic.
Wow.
I'm
And
looking
I
forward
didn't,
to going over there as well. So it'll be fun.
yeah. And so, Scott, I didn't realize you'd played in Japan as well. So you had a
Yeah.
variety of experiences. That's awesome. And
Yeah.
yeah, this November, of course, the Lions are going to be in Munich. I will be there. I was able to get some tickets, and I'm not the only one. Herman, I heard you mention it. I've seen you promoting this a little bit, but you are going. You're going to be part of something taking place. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, partnered up with True Fan Travel, and it's an opportunity for fans to have a one-of-a-kind experience. It's going to be myself, Lomas Brown, Dan Miller. I think it's going to be on that tour with us as well, and also Scott Mitchell. You know, plan on being out there. We plan on taking in Germany and our team that's going to be there collecting some content and just really just taking it, taking in the experience. But with that, it's a great opportunity for those that are looking for that experience to go overseas, to spend 6 days or a week over on international grounds, and just seeing how the other part of the world enjoys our Americanized game. And as Scott mentioned, we've talked about this and we've had some conversation around it. I think it would be a great to see the NFL start to expand. We know that there are other leagues that are starting to do it. We're getting a lot of international players that are playing here from different cultures and different places. So I think, starting to expand into those places is what we're actually seeing taking place. And, when that's going to really have its ultimate explosion in an announcement, I think it's coming. And I don't think they're doing this by happenstance. I think it's being done on purpose. And there's a bigger vision for what the NFL will be in years to come.
All right. Well, True Fan Travel is where you can check out travel information, take part in the excursion with Herman Moore and Lomas Brown and Dan Miller. The pre-sale stuff went fast. I struggled, but managed to get tickets. There will be another sale coming up, but those things can be hard to get. And those are just the tickets. If you want a full-fledged experience, check out True Fan Travel with Herman. And that sounds like an incredible thing. I've already checked it out online myself, and there are a lot of great options that you guys have set up there. So I highly recommend you take a look at that. And it will be interesting where this expansion goes, if there is one, what it looks like, because we're almost to the point where there's going to be an international game every week of the year, it feels like, going forward in the not too distant future. So let me ask you, if Scott's played in a few places, but today, if you guys were playing today, is there a certain place that you would like to play? It can be a place that the NFL currently plays, or maybe one they've never played a game before, but that would be a fun place for you to go.
And it has to be different than where we played. I wouldn't trade Detroit. I want to, have an opportunity to finish my career here, even though I ended up in New York. But
no, just for like one international game.
International
like if you were
game.
with the Lions.
International. Yep. Brazil.
Yeah.
Brazil. Yeah.
Well, I know Bettina Braga, Detroit Lions International Fan of the Year, loves that answer, and she would love it if you guys came down there.
I would say Rome, Italy.
Ooh.
Yeah. Somehow if they could retrofit the Colosseum, and I know they can do it. What do you mean? Don't raise your hands at me like that.
Figure out,
Rome.
I mean, at least pick a stadium that already exists, man. Like something
Well,
that
it
we can kind
existed
of
like 2,000 years ago.
Well, I want to go play in Scotland or something. I want to go play where there's
Well,
a new.
they can play in Scotland.
We can go find a castle. We can
But no,
build something in the back or
They
whatever.
have stadiums.
I'm just saying, man. No, I
No, they have.
understand,
They
but
have
I'm just
soccer in Rome.
no. I understand.
That's where you play. You play in a
No,
soccer.
man. But
stadium.
no, you just talking about going and put down retrofitting coliseums and all.
Hey, it was a
stuff.
fantasy thing, and so I was just thinking fantasy wise. So, like the Coliseum in Rome, how amazing would that be if you could play a game in that? I'm just saying. I'll tell you where they could do it though. They could do the Circus Maximus because it's a huge. They could totally do a game there. That's where they did all the chariot races.
Yeah.
Herman, yeah.
Are
chariot
you-
races? Circus Maximus.
Are you not entertained?
Final answer.
Are you not yet entertained?
Thank
Is
you.
that not why you are here?
That is why. Yes. Yes.
There you go.
Coliseum, Rio de Janeiro,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Brazil.
Oh yeah. Brazil.
Brazil.
Oh, well, awesome. Those are exciting answers.
Working
This
on my
will be
tan,
my
man.
first international game. I've been to Germany twice before, and it's phenomenal. And so I also highly recommend just for the travel experience, in addition to catching the Lions. All right, Herman, you are a busy person. I've said this before when we've talked. I think you're busier now than when you played football. And that seems very difficult considering the type of schedule pro athletes have. You're involved in a lot of different things. We've talked a little bit about the down and dirty with you and Scott. Is there anything else specific that you've got currently going on that you'd like to highlight, let listeners know about?
No, other than just again, super excited about teaming back up with Scott. You know, we talk about the Down and Dirty show, but there's a lot more that we're looking to do. We are not just looking to be, you know, content creators or influencers or just media personalities. We're really trying to take in just the lifestyle and personality. We want to get out and meet people in the community. We want to elevate others and their brands and those things. And that's why even working, you had mentioned Chrissy and our company Stack Brands. It's the same thing. Like we're looking for the exposure. We're looking to build a community of people as we continue to go. We've been doing great with Lions Nation Unite, and she's done a great job of championing that. And we just want to get out and continue to expand on our love of community, sports, and just our friendship and brotherhood. And with that being said, I plan on in integrating Scott into my journey, just as he's integrated me into his. And then with our team, he's been welcomed into our family back here in Michigan. And we appreciate guys like you and your platform for giving us an opportunity to come on and just talk shop, because we're authentic, we're transparent, we're just wanting to be just good people and have a great time at doing it. So other than that, man, that's it. And you know what else I do next? Ask me again next week. I'm sure I'll be doing something different. But I will guarantee you this: it'll be something that is not just, you know, about me. It's going to be something that is unselfish. It's going to benefit myself and others, and we'll all enjoy it together collectively.
Oh, it sounds interesting. I can't wait to learn more about what those things are. Scott, how about you? Anything I haven't asked you about? Anything you'd like to share before we wrap things up and get out of here?
Well, I'm just super excited to be back in Michigan, and brings back a lot of great memories for me, and just really looking forward to celebrating what a great state this is, and just one of the greatest fan bases really in all of sports in all of our country, and love the passion of the people here, and really want to get back into the community, and really excited to be here with Herman and doing all the things we're doing. So other than that, it's just good to be back. The boys are back in town, and we're happy to be here.
WR1.
See, I'm QB1 because I can't count to 2.
Well, I wish you both.
Bobby Ross counted 7. I think I was like WR7 or something by the time I was done.
We'll have to get into that one on another conversation.
Oh, if you're going to go there.
No, we'll save that one for our show.
All right. But I wish you guys both continued success and growth with the Down and Dirty. Thank you both for joining the show today. This was a pleasure and a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Matt. You're always a pleasure, man. Thank you.
Again, a huge thank you to Herman and Scott for stopping by and joining the show. Please check out their show, The Down and Dirty. Thank you, folks, for tuning in. Please tell your friends and family about the show. Find us on social media like Twitter and Instagram. You can check out more episodes and content at notthesameoldlions.com. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.